Okay, moving on to discuss Nazi Germany. So, first off, it's important for us to realize what Nazism actually is. It is an extreme form of nationalism. I realize that a lot of this is because the Germans were still reeling off of the way that they were treated during the Treaty of Versailles. You also saw that Nazism was incredibly racist in nature. So you can see Nazism again as a combination of extreme nationalism plus racism. All right, this hyper nationalist sense is one of the major reasons why Germany militarizes increasingly, violates the Treaty of Versailles. Basically, they have this significant impulse to conquer other nations. And again, this all goes back to the Treaty of Versailles, in which many conservatives felt that the Weimar Republic was stabbing them in the back. So the nation, a lot of conservatives in particular, are very frustrated with the status of Germany. And so you see this emergence of very defensive nationalism after World War I, which is going to contribute to the emergence of this very hyper form of nationalism, which is going to sort of be championed by the Nazi Party. You're also going to see the sense of nationalism is actually going to expand beyond Germany's borders. There were Austro-German nationalists in places like Vienna who actually also sought to unite with Germany. They felt that Austro-Germans should expel, quote, inferior peoples, which we'll talk about a little bit in a while. We'll see actually that some of the sentiment by Austro-Germans in Vienna is actually going to inspire some of Hitler's more racist beliefs, the racist ideals that the Nazis believe in. Stem from a belief that the Aryan race, which is Germanic peoples, are superior to all others. In particular, the Nazis feel that Jews and Slavs are the most inferior, arguably in their minds, subhuman race. And as we know, as time goes on, the solution for what to do with these people within the German Empire becomes more and more extreme until we reach Hitler's, quote, final solution in the Nazi Holocaust. All right, so where does Hitler come from? Right, Hitler actually lived in Vienna for a long period before World War I, and while he was living in Vienna, he actually was very much influenced by the mayor, Karl Lueger, who you should remember from chapter 25. Karl Lueger was very anti-Semitic and racist. He very much hates the fact that Austro-Hungary was multi-ethnic. So in a lot of ways, it is Karl Lueger's ideas that make Hitler very nationalistic, very pro-German. Hitler also fights in World War I, and after World War I is over, he is one of the many people that adopts the stabbed-in-the-back theory of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler, like many other conservatives, believed that the source of blame for the stabbed-in-the-back theory were Jews and communists. He believes that that's one of the reasons why the Weimar Republic gave in to the Treaty of Versailles. And Hitler becomes the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party, after World War I. And it's important for us to realize that the Nazi Party was very small immediately after World War I. It only had 7 members at first, but it grows dramatically. And, we should think about some of the desperate sentiments of some of the conservatives and middle-class people in Germany to cause the Nazi Party to grow so quickly in such a short period of time. You're going to see that the Nazi Party also was very inspirational to people because they organized mass rallies where they frequently attacked the Versailles Treaty and the Weimar Republic in general. And these rallies actually caused a lot of people to decide to join in with the ranks of the Nazis. Another thing that the Nazis had that helped lead to their growth, similar to the black shirts in Italy, we have the SA, or the brown shirts, which was the Nazis' answer to a paramilitary group, right? They, just like the black shirts, they terrorized political opponents on the streets. The brown shirts were effectively a private army of the Nazis who were very, very loyal to Hitler. You actually saw that many of the members of the brown shirts used to be part of the Freikorps, which you may remember was the paramilitary group that kind of helped defend the Weimar Republic in its early vulnerable years and defeated groups like the Spartacists, the communist rebels in Berlin in 1919. So Hitler attempts to take power much earlier, about 10 years earlier than when he actually does become chancellor. So in 1923, you may remember from the last chapter, the Beer Hall Putsch, where Hitler attempts to overthrow the state of Bavaria, but he fails. All right. When the Beer Hall Putsch fails, Hitler is sentenced to a year prison term, which again shows us that the judges were kind of sympathetic to Hitler if they gave him such a light sentence. Ultimately what the Beer Hall Putsch shows us is it's Hitler's active resistance against the Weimar Republic. He feels that the Weimar Republic is quite weak, which in a lot of ways it is. We know this because of hyperinflation, because of the Ruhr crisis. Again, things we studied in the previous chapter. Ultimately, Hitler felt that Germans should have stood up more strongly to the French in the Ruhr crisis, right? And ultimately, the Beer Hall Putsch was his conservative answer to the Weimar Republic. So even though it fails, a couple of important things that result from this. First off, when Hitler is in jail, he writes Mein Kampf, which is essentially his, I guess, guidebook for his future plans for Germany, including his articulation of racism, expansion of Germany's borders. You also see that Hitler sort of emerges on the map. He becomes famous after the failed Beer Hall Putsch. So again, more and more people might be attracted to his Nazi ideology after the Beer Hall Putsch. And we're also going to see that when he fails to take power illegally, his new strategy is going to try to legitimately gain power. And we know, of course, by 1933, he does this successfully. So let's examine Mein Kampf in a little bit more specific detail. All right, so Mein Kampf, again, he writes it while he's in jail in 1923, and we see this as kind of the blueprint for Hitler's future plans for Germany. All right, one of the things that Mein Kampf does is it denounces the Treaty of Versailles as well as the Weimar Republic. All right, he doesn't like the Weimar Republic, of course, because it accepts the Treaty of Versailles. He, again, is very much a proponent of the stabbed-in-the-back theory, right? And he has ideas for how to strengthen Germany in the future, right? So there are three major tenets to his plans for Germany. One is called Lebensraum, which is German for living space. Ultimately, he felt that Germany should continue to expand its borders. He believed that in the process of this expansion, the Jews and the Slavs should be turned into slaves. And in his way, he saw this as a way to sort of regain land that Germany lost during World War I. And again, we show that this is kind of a combination of aggressive nationalism as well as racism because of what he planned to do to the Jewish and Slavic population in those regions. All right, another tenet of Mein Kampf was ruthless anti-Semitism. Hitler wanted the Jews to ultimately take the majority of the blame for all the political and economic problems that resulted in Germany after World War I. Again, this goes along with the stabbed-in-the-back theory. And the last tenet that Hitler supported was the idea that a strong leader in a dictatorial form should emerge to bring Germany into a new period of greatness. This leader was called the Führer, and we know, of course, this is the title that Hitler will eventually assume. So another reason why the Weimar Republic becomes vulnerable, which allows Hitler to rise to power, is because the Great Depression was very devastating to Germany's economy. All right, and we'll see that the Nazi Party grows dramatically during the Depression. So just to give you a few figures, before the Great Depression in 1928, you had 100,000 people in the Nazi Party total. All right, so again, we see that it grew a lot since 1923, obviously, from 7 to 100,000. In 1928, you also had 28 Nazi seats in the Reichstag. All right, just 2 years later, all right, in 1930, there are going to be 107 Nazi seats in the Reichstag. So from 28 in 1928 to 107 in 1930, and then by 1932 you're going to have 230 Nazi seats in the Reichstag. And by 1932 the Nazi Party will be the largest party in the Reichstag. All right, so significant growth in the Nazi Party, all not surprisingly during the Great Depression. Why is the Great Depression a period where the Nazis rise to power so much? Partly just because of the desperate economic situation. You may recall from the previous chapter that unemployment reached a whopping 43% in Germany by the end of 1932. So because of all this economic chaos and also the inability for the Weimar Republic to respond adequately to it, it's going to make Hitler take advantage of this situation. So what Hitler starts to do is he begins to promise German voters that he is going to save them politically, militarily, and economically. Right? So ultimately, more and more people in this desperate situation, not having jobs, experiencing low wages, are going to look to Hitler as, a potential solution to their problems. Hitler promised big business leaders that he would restore the economy. He actually thought that the way to do this would be to break Germany's strong labor movement. All right, so again, very anti-socialist, very anti-communist if he wants to kind of break the strength of laborers. Hitler didn't actually believe that capitalism was the solution to problems. He actually believed that government programs could bring about recovery. Hitler also assured the top army leaders that the Nazis would reject the Versailles Treaty and rearm Germany. So again, this is obviously a total challenge to some of the efforts to establish eternal peace among the League of Nations, for example. But what this shows us is that, like a typical fascist, Hitler very much glorifies war, and he feels that this is the way to make Germany stronger. The Nazis are also going to be very appealing to the young population in Germany. You're going to see that 40% of the Nazi Party is going to be under the age of 30 in 1931, and 67% of the Nazi population is under the age of 40. And a lot of this is because the people in this age group, the under 40 people, are going to be the most disillusioned. They are going to be among the lost generation from after World War I, and they are going to be the population that is of working age, and they're suffering from vast unemployment. So they kind of feel like they're in the most desperate situation after World War I. So the Weimar Republic obviously is in a very vulnerable state by 1930 or so. So vulnerable that in 1930 the Chancellor actually gets permission from the President Hindenburg, to rule by emergency decree. So we know that Germany's in a very desperate situation if suddenly the Chancellor gets decree powers. Basically what you see is that the public, at this point, when they see that, the Chancellor gets decree powers, when the government is so desperate, the voters sort of believe that at this point the Weimar Republic is completely corrupt. They oppose all of the policies that the government is calling for to cut spending and force down prices and wages, because again, this will make their economic situation that much worse. What you're going to see is that there's going to be sort of an ideological struggle, though, within the Weimar Republic, that social democrats and communists within the Weimar Republic are going to sort of, because they struggle so much with what to do, sort of to shape the future of Germany, that the Weimar Republic is going to break down that much more, since there's so much ideological struggle within. The Social Democrats and the Communists together, interestingly, within the Reichstag, actually outnumbered the Nazis. So even though the Nazi was the largest party in 1932, they only had the plurality. They did not have the majority of the population within the Reichstag. But because the Social Democrats and the Communists could not effectively work together, this created a lot of disunity on the left, and it only made the rightist response of the Nazis that much stronger. Also, you're going to see that the Nazi Party continued to grow because the middle class is going to get more and more scared of communism, and so more of them are going to start to vote for the Nazis. And again, by 1932, 1933, the Nazi Party is going to have the largest percentage of voters in the Reichstag. Even though they don't have a pure majority, it's still going to be significant because this is going to sort of give Hitler a mandate. The Nazis, by 1933, demand that Hitler play a leadership role in the government. And because of their demands, the president actually does agree, and he appoints Hitler chancellor on January 30th, 1933. So again, this is significant because this shows us that Hitler actually gained power legally, right, and over a gradual process by continuing to promise the population economic, political, and social relief. More and more people started to turn to the Nazi Party and vote for it in increasing numbers. All right, so we'll continue to talk about the structure of Hitler's government in the next video, the nature of the Third Reich, how he imposes terror and totalitarian rule on his people.